dat.gui. Dat.gui is this on the right, this minimal user interface that you can use to interact with the scene, and actually it can interact with any public properties inside your HTML document if you want it. But it's very commonly used with Three.js. And you'll also find it in most of the examples on the official Three.js examples website. I've also used it in many of the examples as well in this course. So to get started, looking at our code, I'm continuing on from where we left off from the last video at the stats panel. Okay, if we look at 3 again, node modules 3, in libs, there's another module in there called dat.gui.module, just there. We'll import that into our code. So client, there we go, import GUI from 3 examples JSM libs dat.gui.module. Now it was having trouble trying to find that then, but that is the correct path. Now the reason why it was having trouble finding that is because it could not find a declaration file for the module examples etc. dat.gui module. The type definitions doesn't come with Three.js by default, and it also doesn't come with the types Three.js that we've installed from definitely typed. So if we were to look inside types and then go down to 3 examples libs, yeah, it's not there. So stats.module.d.ts is there, but not dat.gui. We're going to have to install this separately. So what to do? Control C to get out of the Webpack dev server. Okay, so npm install app types / dat.gui, and I'm going to save to dev. npm install types dat.gui. Okay, very good. If we now refresh and look at types, go types dat.gui, there's index.d.ts for the dat.gui. Still hasn't found it in our project yet. We're going to have to explicitly add a path telling our project which type definition file to use when it sees that path there. Control copy that, go into your project's tsconfig.json, and down here write paths like so, inverted commas. That will point to, I have it on my documentation here. Okay, make it an array down 2 levels into node modules at types dat.gui. So if we go down to, it's client source, source is at the same level as node modules, so up into types, there's types, and then there's dat.gui, and in that it will find an index.d.ts. So there we go, that's that there. We're explicitly telling our project when it sees that path in any imports, it's going to use a type definition file that it finds in that folder. And that is relative to the tsconfig here. Control S to save that. Now going back to our client, it's now found it. Sometimes when making these changes, these things don't get found even after setting them correctly. So what you can do is press F1 and select restart TS server, and it will go and re-find all the type definitions for all the imports that you're importing. But I didn't have that problem that time. It just happens occasionally. Okay, so Control S, that looks good. I'm going to run npm run dev again just to start up the Webpack dev server and verify everything's still running. It is. Very good. Okay, now to add the GUI to our application. So down here, I'm just going to add it somewhere in my document just after where I've added the stats. Seems like a good idea. Const GUI equals a new GUI. Okay, so GUI.add. So the type definitions are telling us what methods we can use when we type GUI like that. GUI.add target object. I'm going to modify the cube's rotation manually. So cube.rotation. The actual property of cube rotation will be X. It needs to be a string because it's going to use that as the name of the user interface control as well. The minimum value, which is being underlined there, will be a 0, and the maximum value I'm going to use math.pi times 2. That's the same as saying 360 degrees. Cube rotation's 3 Euler needs all its properties in radians. So math.pi times 2 equals 360 degrees. So that's the radians version of 360 degrees. Okay, press Control S to save. And also I'm going to stop rotating the cube in my animation loop. Save that again. Going back to the example, we now have a GUI the top right there. And now I can rotate the cube manually on the x-axis like so. Now I can move more than just the x-axis. I can also move the y-axis and the z-axis. So the cube rotation is x, y, and z-axis. Control S, there we go, x, y, z. So there's x, there's y. It's rotating around the y-axis and rotating around the z-axis. Okay, now that is just very simply modifying a cube's rotation. We can modify the cube's position as well, or the cube's scale. In some of the next videos, we'll do those kinds of things. But right now, I'm going to show you how to put these settings into something called a folder. So looking at this example on the web page, I have an extra control down here for camera, but I've also got them under a little folder with a name called cube and camera like that, which we can toggle on and off. So I'll show you how to make those. So instead of adding all our objects to GUI like that, we can do const cube folder equals GUI.add folder cube, like so. And then instead of adding all my controls to GUI, I'll add them to the cube folder instead, like so. Now, if I look back at the code, there we go, cube. There's a cube folder that we can toggle on and off. Now, it's not open by default, so we can say cube folder.open, save. Now, when we look at it, it's already open. So after refreshing, it's pre-opened. Let's create another folder, const camera folder equals GUI.add folder camera folder.add camera.position. I'm changing the camera's position now. That's the target of this control. I'll change the Z on the camera position, and once again, min, I'll make it 0 and maximum being 10, like so. Let's save that. Let's look at it. Camera is closed by default, so I haven't opened it, but I can now move the Z axis. And now, because camera was already positioned at Z equals 2, if I go back up into the code here, camera position Z equals 2, it's preloaded already set as 2. But now I can just move it like that, left and right, manually controlling the camera Z using the GUI now. And also I will make it so that the camera folder is open by default. There we go. Now it's open by default. And also with these controls, you can make them larger like that if you needed to. Excellent. Okay, so remember that when you import dat.gui module, like many modules in Three.js, there might not be a TypeScript definition for it. So the options are to try and download one from definitely typed using @types/name of the module, or you can make a type definition yourself or find it on another GitHub project somewhere. But whatever you do, you have to tell your tsconfig where the location of the new type definition should be when it finds that path in your code. So that path, 3 examples JSM libs dat.gui module in my code, is written there. And when the IDE and TypeScript sees that, it's going to go to tsconfig and it's going to use the index.d.ts that it finds there. Okay, so there you go, client TS. This code, as it stands now, is on the official documentation page here under final script. Also, with the official boilerplate, I have created a stats.gui branch. So if you were to download the boilerplate and CD into the folder, you can type git checkout stats.gui and the boilerplate will come pre-built with the stats panel and the GUI, just like what I see in this image down here. Okay, excellent. In the next video, we'll start looking at some more of the core of Three.js, and that is the object 3D. Excellent.